What's up, y'all? I'm Casey.
I'm Tyler.
And we are The Element, and we have been looking at
lots of public land maps.
lots of them, specifically West Virginia here lately.
Yep.
First off, you're going to need you some Onyx, so get you some so we can get this e-scout done here.
We spend lots of time in the summer going through digital maps, and in the winter, we hunt at these places we found on these maps. So we're going to take a look at a map here in just a second and kind of show you what our process is like and everything, but the first thing we want to do is talk about West Virginia a little bit. They have a fairly long season. It starts, looks like, in September and kind of goes basically till the end of the year. It looks like there's also potentially a flintlock or something like that, but we're not the authority on laws, so just make sure you check all this out online or call a game warden before you go to West Virginia.
Yeah, that's right. I think you can also kill 4 deer in West Virginia, but they do limit you to 1 per day. So, oh no, I know, right? Apparently, if you're not us, you can encounter more than 1 big buck in a day. However, we find that difficult, so that shouldn't be too much of impediment there.
Yeah, so some of the notable qualities around the state of West Virginia are that there seems to be some kind of, it seems a little shady to me, but it's probably not in their culture, but there's like, people call it public land, but I think it's actually private. It's owned by coal mines and timber companies and that kind of thing. And I think that if you're a local, there's, from what I understand, there's like a kind of a good old boy, just, you know, if you're local, you're kind of accepted. You can hunt that, don't have to ask, whatever. If you're not local, it may be kind of weird for you though.
Yeah, some of this stuff requires like a special permit from a landowner, like a timber company or a coal mine or something like that. Who knows? If you're going to go hunt there, you need to explore those options more, but there are some WMAs and national forests and things like that you can hunt in West Virginia. There are people who actually kill some really big bucks in this state. It's a mountain state, but there are some really big bucks there. There's a group called the Untamed. They've killed some really big deer there that are quite impressive, seeing that this state hardly has any agriculture at all, at least when it comes to like grain production. You know, like it just doesn't have what you would think that would grow huge deer.
Yeah, it's a sleeper state, and one of the main reasons for that is because you almost have to consider West Virginia a destination to get there. It seems like you don't really go through West Virginia to go somewhere. It's like if you're going to Pennsylvania, you're probably coming from Ohio or something like that, right? And you know, you may be going up the East Coast and you end up going around West Virginia into Pennsylvania or something. You know, like there are different ways to get across the U.S., and with the Appalachians there in West Virginia, it doesn't seem like it's really a place that you just go through.
It's not very conducive for highways.
Yeah,
because the whole state.
Roads.
The weird thing about West Virginia is, of any state that I've scouted and looked at, it is the most monotonous state of any state I've looked at. It is all hills, the whole thing. The only thing that could be different is that the Ohio River is right on the west side of the state, and then you've got some really tall ridges there on the east side of the state, kind of right next to Maryland, okay? But still, overall, the whole state is hills. Hill country deer. Hillbillies possibly as well. So one of the things, you know, we're just talking about being locals and stuff. We're from the South. All right, you can call me a hillbilly, I don't care. But one thing you'll run into is some of these places, people get real regional, if you know what I'm saying. There could be some unfriendly neighborhoods, at least, if you're a new guy from a new state or from a different state hunting in the area.
Like they say, lock your car, take your keys.
That's right.
But with all these hills, I think you're going to find a couple of things. There's a remoteness to a lot of these areas that create big bucks, and also, being that it's at a northern latitude, there's hills and things like that. Bears, and I think there are opportunities for bears during deer season, so it might be worth trying to grab a bear tag if you go. So all this is research that you can do. Now what we're going to do is some research on the maps and take a look at where those big bucks might hide. So those deep hollers that are remote and far away from, you know, human activity, from also potentially any parking areas, if we're looking at public stuff especially, like I said, some of this is kind of iffy on whether it's private, public, but we're going to look at public stuff today just because that's what we all know we have an opportunity to go and do. Those deep hollers are going to hold big deer and maybe multiple deer, but it also has to have, you know, some of the attributes that a deer need, not just the, you know, shelter, but as much as anything, it needs food, it needs water, right? They're going to need that. So new cuts, timber cuts that is, are going to be places to look. It's got to be relatively new because the deer need to be able to reach it, right? And they browse a lot, so anything that's been cut within the last couple of years, few years, is somewhere that's going to hold a lot of food potentially.
Yeah, even if you don't have a timber cut, mast fall could be really a big thing as well. Since there's no agriculture, those deer are going to be browsers, which means they're going to need to be on the move, which can be a good thing, but they're going to be looking around for that that mass, which usually is going to be a hard mass up here in the more northern latitudes. We're talking about white oaks usually. I don't know if this is far enough north, but I do know in some of this top country, especially maybe in the more northern reaches of West Virginia, there's a thing called a cucumber tree. It's kind of like a magnolia. Apparently they eat the thing that falls off of that too, so it might be something to look for. And maybe even apples, you know.
Yeah.
Depends on what you can find. You can find an old homestead. You never know what you might find there that the deer are eating on. For those of you that don't know what a holler is, if you're not from holler country, it's a big old deep ravine, okay? So something kind of like what I've got on my screen right here.
You holler into it, right?
Yeah. I think that's why I do it. They can holler at each other from there.
Well, they sing bluegrass songs to each other.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and that's that's their amphitheater.
That'd be a pretty good spot to set up right there for that. And another thing you're probably going to want to look for as well is just varied habitat. Anything you can find varied habitat-wise in a monotonous country. I just stumbled upon some right here. Some of this is a clear cut, but you can see this ridgetop up here is a real thick, possibly evergreen type. I don't know, it looks like cedars or something. I can't really tell.
Looking, isn't it?
Yeah, but as you go down in the bottom here, you can find places where you're probably going to have some type of hardwoods and just some variability in the type of habitat there.
Yeah.
So
good points, man.
Yeah.
So like we're going to look at this again like we've done in some of these videos. We're going to start with the pre-rut and talk about some of the things that we might be looking for in a pre-rut situation. And we're going to talk about mast. Again, like Casey was talking about, most of that's going to be a hard mast. We're looking for, I'm looking at this particular parcel right here and thinking about mast and also thick bedding relating to that mast, so very close to it. I also really want to point out here that I like this because you are on the same plane, if not north looking here, than Columbus, Ohio, which tends to be a place that holds really big deer, and not far from Columbus, right? So, there's different management strategies within some of these DNRs and such, but, this definitely has the potential, the propensity to cover or to hold big deer with the cover, and if you have some similar characteristics to that in Columbus. You don't have as much ag, but you do have a lot of edge here. You've got some clearing stuff. Looks like a lot of potential thick, small trees bedding area right here. Also, I marked this right here as some of this stuff right in here is going to be smaller, or high stem count, as they say, and smaller diameter trees that could potentially hold deer right here. They've got water next to this. It's north facing, so they're going to have cool temps in the early season, right? And then you've got all this as a ridge system for them to hang out on, and also potentially white oak trees on top of this ridge somewhere that they may relate to. So I kind of like this spot. It's also it's not super remote because there's this pad or whatever here. It's a gas or oil pad, but as far as like getting there from a road that you could park on or something, you got a lot of elevation to deal with to get there. So it kind of sits in the middle of this parcel. And once again, like, it's in big deer country, so I like it. Yep,
good looking spot. I think those are all great points for early season. If you're looking at more kind of that rut time period, maybe November, it's good to kind of classically think about hill country style hunting, okay? So like big ridges are always going to be good. I have a place right here pulled up that has this really big extensive ridge system. I don't like ridges that are like this one, that are just kind of straight, because they don't have a lot of character on each side. But you look at this ridge here, and it has like this secondary ridge here. There's a couple that jut off this way. This one here even has like a tertiary ridge heading off this direction. And that means there's a lot of little divots and holes and benches and all kinds of stuff for deer to hide out on. So you'll have a situation where you have bucks that can run the tops of these ridges, drop off into these little holes to smell for does or whatever. And also this kind of correlates back to another timber cut, which is still always going to be a really good place for deer in this type of country to find food. Okay, so like maybe deer are running this ridge back to the timber cut, but still those deer are going to, I wouldn't say gravitate towards elevation and things like that, because the whole country is that, but they will move relative to the elevation and use it to their advantage, which can make it difficult for a hunter. But at the same time, if you can get some experience in this, or at least go out there and do some trying, you can figure out some things and how the deer are moving in the country.
Yeah, for sure. I like that spot. The DNR website or wildlife website, whatever it's called, I forget, it says that peak conception dates are going to be around 11/14 to 11/17. So you're going to have a very consistent with majority of the U.S. rut. So early November being maybe the best time to see rut action. And with that, Casey talked about, hill country saddles are going to be a thing. So like I found a spot here where I can see deer moving across this right here, and there's beans right here. And so I like, anywhere you can find ag, that's going to be different than a lot of the places if you can hunt deer that are moving to ag.
And there's like some creek bottom stuff on the north end of that place.
Yes.
Because not a lot of that type country around, so that's actually pretty cool.
This also happens to be right here on that's the Ohio River, right? So basically, all this stuff is big deer country right in here in Ohio, and you're sitting right there. You're also in the river bottom, so you're gonna have that nutrient base that the soil needs that create good browse for deer that create big antlers and big bodied deer and lots of them. So I like that. And then going into that post-rut area, we're looking, in my opinion, we're looking at stuff that is going to be remote and or hard to get to. I like the thought of having to go uphill twice to get to a spot. So from wherever the closest parking is, having to go uphill at least twice can lose so many deer.
Yeah.
And this big old core chunk right here is one of those areas that I really like for post-rut stuff. You've got a couple of cuts right in here. You got a bunch of just bedding out on here, and I think that deer can definitely find some browse. I don't know how cold and dead everything gets down in here, but that's definitely an area that would have some browse at some point during the season.
Yeah.
And postseason might be tough down in there, but you're gonna have deer that, even if it's in low number, quantity numbers of deer, you're going to have deer that will hole up in some of this stuff. This is way remote and way up in here in a hole, and I think you could find a big deer in there.
I'm looking at the same type of stuff here as well. You got a creek bottom here that's going to make some really deep holes in some good places, but there's a big cut right here on this same side, and I think about deer in these mountain country like this just like elk pretty much. Like they're going to do the same stuff summer and pre-rut that they do post-rut, when that's pretty much going to go back to cover and food, right? And right here there's going to be plenty of food. Like you're saying, it's going to change. They're not going to be browsing on like soft stuff like they would in the summer that's fresh growth, but all this stuff where this cut is going to be where they find that woody browse stuff that they eat late in the year, like regrowth off of stumps or whatever. Just going to be a lot more availability of food in that area. You mix that with a really good spot where they have, say a dude has to go and park here and cross this creek to go over here to, those deer feel pretty secluded. Well, I guess there's a road coming from the other side, but
some of those roads it's hard to tell if they actually exist.
Yeah,
'cause I was looking at
exactly right.
Yeah.
So, don't always trust the 2-track marker, because that might be a road from 50 or 60 years ago, and quite honestly, sometimes whenever these things get closed down, there's a road there, but maybe there's a gate, it just becomes a deer highway at that point in time, which can be really good.
Yeah, and if it's long, like dudes aren't going to walk the whole thing, you know what I mean? So getting out to the end of that thing could be advantageous. Also, e-bikes could be a way to access that stuff that other guys haven't done. If you see boot tracks, an e-bike could be a way to get further back in there. So I actually hunted hill type country in Iowa a couple of years ago. It was really steep ridge system in this area that I was hunting, and I was on top of the ridge one morning and almost killed a really nice buck up there. Should have killed him. You can watch this video right here to see why he was 5 yards away and why I didn't kill him.
And you can watch this other video to see us map, or actually go out and put boots on the ground and then apply it to maps in Pennsylvania, which is really, really similar country to what we have going on right here.